This After Effects tutorial is sponsored by aejuice.com. Hey guys, what's up? I am Nikhil from dopemotions.com and welcome back to this brand new After Effects tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to create a very creative logo animation inside of After Effects using 3D stroke. Now, a quick disclaimer here that we will be using a third-party plugin from the trapcode suite, the 3D stroke. It's an absolutely amazing plugin to create a very cool 3D stroke animation inside of After Effects, and it has a lot of features that will help you to create a very innovative animation. So with that said, let's jump into After Effects and get started. Hey guys, make sure to check out I Want It All bundle from aejuice, which contains over 5,000 animated elements, transition, presets and titles for your projects. It comes with a handy pack manager plugin, and this is one of those investments that will last you for a lifetime. Oh, and they also have a free starter pack. It has over 100 animations that you can try it out for free. For more information, check out the link in the description below. Alright, so here we are in After Effects. Let's start by creating a new composition. Let's keep it 1920 by 1080, 30 fps and 10 seconds long. Let's call this main, as this is going to be our main comp. Hit OK. Now let's create a background. So hit Ctrl Y to create a new solid. Call this BG for background. Let's give it a nice color. Something like a nice dark blue. That looks good. Now to add the 3D stroke effect, I can create a new solid again. So hit Ctrl Y, call this 3D stroke and hit OK. Now let's go into effects and presets and type in 3D stroke and double click to apply that up. Now before we jump into all the fun stuff, let me give you guys a quick overview of what 3D stroke is. Basically, it's going to help us to create a nice stroke animation but with all the 3D properties. Now to add a stroke onto anything, we need to give it a path. So I'm going to select my ellipse tool and let's create a circle. Just to give you guys an example. So this is a circle just like a shape layer, but now I can animate the end property, obviously just like we do with the shape layer trim path animation. But now let's actually give it a pretty simple animation. Let's set this to 0. Make your time indicator at the very start. Create a keyframe on the end property. I'll go around, let's zoom in a bit. I'll go around 20 frames and set this to 100. Go back to 10 frames. Create a keyframe on the start property. Go to 1 second and let's set this to 100. So basically, now we have a pretty simple animation, right? But the best part is that now I can jump into the transform properties and play around with some rotation. Now, because this is 3D, you can actually, move it just like you do with all the 3D stuff inside of After Effects. And now you can see we get this really nice perspective with this shape, and it doesn't end here. You can also jump into the taper section, taper this up just like that, so that you get a very nice edge. As you can see, it adds a bit more perspective. You can obviously play around with the start and end thickness, and also you can jump into the repeater, enable this and do some really crazy stuff. So if I hit Ctrl Shift H to hide the control layers, you can see we get this really cool look. And there are a number of different properties that you can manipulate to get a very interesting look. So for example, if I play around with the scale and do some really crazy stuff with the displacement, I can displace the z-axis and I can also rotate this, so you get a pretty interesting look. And you can actually play around with this and come up with a very interesting animation. Now you can see here we get this weird issue, and to fix this, all you have to do is jump into the advanced section and let's set the adjust steps to 0. Now this is going to make the effect a bit heavy, but it's going to make it smooth as well. So as you can see, you can create some very crazy stuff using some very simple shapes. So now you have a basic idea of what 3D stroke is. Let's go ahead and animate this. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's turn off the repeater. We don't need that. We need the taper, but I want to set the taper start and taper end all the way up to 100. All I have to do is animate the taper start shape. So I'm going to go ahead at 20 frames, create a keyframe on the taper start, go right over here where the animation ends and set this to, let's set this to around 10. I'm going to hit U so we can see the keyframe, go back and set this to 0. So now basically we have this very nice and simple animation. Now let's select the layer, hit M to bring down the mask property, and right now we have a circle, but I don't want that. I'm going to delete that mask, and what I'm going to do is create a simple stroke. So select the pen tool and let's create a shape just like that. So basically we have a pretty simple shape animation. But now if I jump into the transform properties, we also get an option called bend, and this is where all the magic happens. So if I bend this up, let's play around with the bend axis, maybe bend this really high, pretty crazy, and play around with the axis like this. If I preview this, now you can see we get a very interesting animation. Because this stroke is 3D, we get this really cool look. I can also play around with the rotation and stuff and come up with a very interesting look. This is the complete base of the animation. So now let's go ahead and add the properties that would fit in perfectly with our animation. Also, one more thing is that after you create the shape, I can move this, and this is going to affect the way our stroke looks. So I can move this the way I want it to look. So if I keep it something like that, we get a pretty interesting animation. So you need to remember that you can always play around with the shapes to find a really cool look. So let's place it somewhere around there, bring down the bend to around 15 point, or let's go with actually 16. That should work good. Let's twist this in a way I want. So I'm gonna keep it something like, I guess, something like this should work. Now let's bring this up by 108, bring this up by 297, and bring down the Z rotation to 0, and also let's bring this up just like so. So now what we have is this really cool animation. Now these are the properties that I already played around for a while, and this properties came out really handy and worked the way I want the animation to look. But you are free to try out this. You can experiment with the rotation and stuff like that, but I'm just gonna go with the preview. So this is what looks pretty cool. That is looking pretty great. Maybe I'll increase the thickness to around 15. Yep, that looks much better. And also for the color, I can set this to blue. So that is looking pretty cool. Now our shape looks a bit flat. It doesn't have that depth. So to add a nice shadow to our shape, what I'm going to do is select the layer, right click, and go into, what was it? Layer styles. And let's add an inner shadow. All right, so I'm going to zoom this a bit, and now let's go into the inner shadow properties. Let's make some room right over here. So I'm going to select the same color from here, make it a bit dark version of that, and let's set down or increase the distance to around 35 should work. And now you can see we get this really nice shadows, but I think 35 is a bit too much. Let's set this to 20, and then I'll set the size down to 0, and let's add some noise to add this really cool texture to the shadows. Now depending if you want to go with that, you can add this nice texture. If you don't want, you can just set the noise to 0, but I like to keep it just like that. Set the opacity to 50, and now you can see we have some nice depth into our stroke. You can always increase this to give it a different look, but I think 30 looks good. Yep, that is actually looking pretty cool. So this is the complete base of the animation, and now all we have to do is just duplicate it and make it random, or just change the way the shape animates, or you can just even change the position of the mask. So before we move ahead, let me show you this quick add-on that it has. Now if you go into the set color, it's set to solid color, but if you want to use a nice gradient, you can always switch to follow offset and go into the color ramp, and you can create your own color ramp or use any preset that it has. And you can basically add some very cool colors to the stroke. So if I want, I can just select this, double click, and maybe add a nice pink color to this, and double click and add a nice blue color just to make it look super colorful and cool. So the possibilities are endless with this really cool effect. So for now I'm just gonna set this to solid color because I think that looks pretty cool. Now let's select it, hit Control D to duplicate it. Let's change the color to a nice red one. Also same for the shadow as well. So I'm going to go into layer styles, inner shadow. Let's select same color with a darker version. And now all I have to do is move the shape to any different position and try to experiment and come up with a really nice way it looks. Maybe I'll bring down the size a bit of this one, something like 8 or something, just to add a bit more variation. And I can always just play around with the position a bit. Let's move this right over here, and I'll bring down the bend size, or just bend to maybe 6, and let's pump this up to 195, and let's give it an X rotation of 286, Y rotation of 57, and the Z rotation I'm going to set this to 0, doesn't really matter. Let's see, still it's not looking the way I want it to look. Let's increase the thickness again to 15, something just a bit. Yep, that is actually looking pretty cool. So our base strokes are ready. Now let's go ahead and add some accents to these strokes. And to do that, it's pretty simple. All I have to do is let's select this. First of all, I'm going to make the blue one a blue color, give it a blue label so that we don't mess up. And then what I can do is just let's duplicate this, hit Control D to duplicate the blue one, bring down the thickness to around 5 should work good. And we don't want any shadows on this one, so I can hide the layer styles for now. And we can just play around and move this up. Just like that, probably very small, just like 0.6. Let's see how it looks. Yep, actually that is looking pretty nice. Same I'm going to do with the red one, so hit Control D to duplicate it, bring that down to 1 and move the path. So I'm going to move this to something like that. Let's see. Yep, that is actually looking pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to select the base blue and the base red and move them 10 frames forward in time. Now I want the red to appear a bit later, I guess. So we just need to position that properly. And yep, that is actually looking very good. Maybe a bit forward. So let's see what we have. Yep, that is actually looking pretty cool. Let's go ahead and duplicate this again. Hit Control D to duplicate the red one. And this time what I'm going to do is go into the layer styles. Actually, let's delete the layer styles for now and go into the layer styles again and add a stroke. Let's solo this up so we can just see this and also the background. And now what I'm going to do is for the color, I'm going to go with the background color, but now for the stroke color, I'm going to use a nice red color. So let's make some room right here and turn everything on again. And then I can just switch this a bit and select the same color. Now I can increase the stroke if I want. So I like to keep it somewhere around 8 or maybe 7.5. Yep, I think I'll go with 7.5. So now we have this really interesting look, as you can see. Now let's make it a bit more random. So I can keep it something like that. Move this way out, just like that. Yep, that is looking much better. Also, I want to add this below the blue stroke, so it's at the back, and I can just duplicate this. So hit Control D, go into the layer styles, stroke, and select the blue stroke this time, and let's move this shape in a different position. So let's see what we have. And as you can see, this is looking pretty cool. Now I'm going to move this a bit, I think a bit more. So what I can do is I can just move this a bit like that. Yep, that is looking much better. All right, now let's go ahead and create a new composition for the logo. Call this logo. For the height and width, I'll keep it very small, something like 500 by 500. That looks good. Hit OK, and then you can add any logo that you want. I'm gonna add Mean Machine logo, which is my Video Hive profile with the name Mean Machine, which you guys can check it out. The link will be in the description below if you guys are interested. So I'll drag and drop in the logo comp right over here. Scale this down to around 70%, and let's pretty quickly add a fill on this. So go into effects and preset, add a nice fill and make it white. And now I'm going to add a very simple animation on this. So let's create a keyframe on the scale property and also on the rotation property. Hit U. Let's move this maybe 5 frames forward at 25. Go back, and I'm going to set this to around 30 and rotate this a bit, something like -45. Now we have a pretty simple animation, but also we need to keep let's pull this forward actually somewhere around there where the stroke ends and then the logo appears. So at the moment we have a very simple animation for the logo and it doesn't look very good. So I'm going to use some very simple script. Now I'm not going to explain you the complete script at the moment because the tutorial is already very long. So for now I'm just going to use the script, and this script, I got the scripts from, not the script, actually these are the expression that I got from motionscripts.com. You can check it out. The link will be in the description. They have explained each and everything very precisely, so you can check that out. So what I'm going to do is select the first expression, which is the scale expression. Hit Control C. And on the stopwatch, I'm going to hold Alt and click on the stopwatch, hit Control V. So now on the scale, you can see we have a very nice bounce. But I also want to add a nice overshoot onto the rotation. So here we have the rotation expression. I'm going to hit Control C and paste it on the rotation. And now let's preview our complete animation. And yep, I think it's looking pretty cool. Now there are various different effects that you can add onto the strokes. For example, I can maybe select the base one. Let's select this blue. I add a Venetial blinds on this. Let's see how does that look. Yep, that actually looks pretty cool. Not bad. So you can add this kind of effects and maybe add a fractal noise and play around with stuff. So yeah, I think that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. Follow me on Instagram at dope.motions. We are about to reach 50,000 followers on Instagram, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. It's pretty hot here and I'm getting all sweaty, I guess. Anyways, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care and always stay raw, stay creative. Peace out.